Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in Major League Baseball. First up is the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. No official starter for Pittsburgh. We should see Matthew Liberatore on the mound for the Cardinals. Not my favorite game on the board, a game I'll be staying away from, but I'm going to lean towards the under here. We can expect a pretty steep total in this game. We saw a high-scoring game in the first one of this series, but Matthew Liberatore, even though he's got that ERA above 6, I still think it's a decent matchup for him, for a bounce-back spot, as this Pittsburgh Pirates lineup has really struggled against lefties this season in the last month as well, where they're 26th in baseball in team OPS against lefties, 25th in isolated power in that last month, and we just saw them face Dallas Keuchel, and they made him look like one of the best starting pitchers in baseball. It was a really good spot for Pittsburgh to get going offensively. They got shut out in that game. I'm going to take the under here. Pittsburgh's got a decent bullpen, so give me the under. Next up, the Chicago Cubs taking on the Detroit Tigers. We're going to see Tarik Skubal and Jameson Taillon as your projected starters. We know the Chicago Cubs in the last month have been really good against righties, one of the best lineups in baseball against right-handed pitchers. But against lefties, their numbers right around league average in OPS and isolated power. Their strikeout rate around 24% as a team. I do think this is a good matchup for Tarik Skubal on the bump. He's been pitching well overall this season, 3-2 record with a 3.76 ERA, but even better numbers when he's pitching at Comerica Park, where he's yet to give up an earned run in 18 1/3 innings, a 159 opponent's batting average with 26 strikeouts, no home runs, of course, and a 2-0 record. Jameson Taillon still has that ERA above 5.5 on the year. He was pitching better in the second half, but the last couple of starts for him, giving up 10 earned runs and 2 home runs his last 9 innings of work. I'm going to take the Detroit Tigers here on the money line. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Kenta Maeda and Corbin Burnes are your projected starters. Pretty good pitching matchup in this game. Probably a game I'm going to be watching more as a fan than anything else, as I think this line is pretty much where it needs to be. I don't see a ton of value on either side. I would lean towards the Brewers because I do think Corbin Burnes is a slightly more reliable starting pitcher. Maeda's last start against the Tigers, he gave up in 4 innings of work, 7 base hits, 3 earned runs, and 2 home runs. Makes it 5 straight games with at least 1 home run given up for Maeda. So a little bit concerning there, facing a weak lineup like Detroit. I also think the Brewers have the slightly better bullpen, and I also like the fact that the Brewers have been a really good home team. The Twins have not been a great road team. So for those reasons, I'm going to take the Brewers here at a decent price with Burnes on the bump. Next up, the Seattle Mariners taking on the Chicago White Sox. George Kirby and Michael Kopech are your projected starters. For me, this is a lopsided pitching matchup. Michael Kopech still has a lot of issues with his game right now with his control. He's missing outside the zone, walking a lot of batters, 4 or more walks in each of his last 4 starts, but also missing inside the zone, giving up 28 home runs thus far in 116 innings. A lot of extra base hits. We saw 3 homers his last game against the Rockies, 9 earned runs in that 14-1 loss. And the Mariners are one of the hottest teams in baseball, one of the hottest lineups in baseball against righties. So I don't think Kopech fares too well here. On the other side, George Kirby, it's been a solid season, 3.23 ERA. He's been consistent on the bump for Seattle. Didn't pitch too well in his last game against the Royals, but we've talked about it. The Royals have actually been one of the better lineups in the league against righties recently. The White Sox just aren't that team. So for me, I'm going to take the Mariners here, lay the 1.5 runs with a lean towards a 2.5 run alternate line as well. Next up, the Kansas City Royals taking on the Oakland A's. No official starter for Oakland, but we should see Cole Ragans for the Royals. Since being acquired from the Rangers in that trade for Aroldis Chapman, Ragans has pitched really well. He hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs in a single start, and a lot of quality starts, a lot of strikeouts during those innings. And I think he pitches pretty well here against an Oakland A's team. It's been decent against righties in the last month, but against lefties, Oakland is 26th in baseball in isolated power in the last 30 days. They are 20th in team OPS. Strikeout rate's not too bad, but the walk rate's at 5.5%, one of the lowest in baseball. I think this Oakland A's bullpen could be in trouble. It's been the worst in the league in the last month in terms of Sierra, with an ERA above 5. Give me the Kansas City Royals here on the money line on the road. Next up, the San Francisco Giants taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to see Alex Cobb and Michael Lorenzen as your projected starters. Alex Cobb is struggling right now. He's just not in good form. We know he had struggled on the road this season, but even his last 2 home starts against the Diamondbacks and Rangers, he goes 10 1/3 innings, gives up 9 earned runs combined and 4 home runs. And that's the big concern for me, is he's a ground ball specialist, but he's not keeping the ball on the ground and giving up a lot of sharp contact. The strikeout stuff isn't working. His control's been bad. So on the road here against Philadelphia, a team that's ranked in the top 10 in baseball in the last month against righties and OPS. I think Cobb continues to struggle. Michael Lorenzen's last start was not his best, that's for sure. He followed up his no-hitter, giving up in 3 to 3rd innings. The same team, 6 earned runs against the Nationals. But the Giants in the last 30 days, they're dead last in baseball in OPS against righties, dead last in isolated power, a pretty steep strikeout rate as well. I think the matchup certainly benefits the Phillies here. Give me the Phillies on the money line, and I lean towards the run line as well. Next up, the Miami Marlins taking on the San Diego Padres. Sandy Alcantara and Seth Lugo are your starters. A game similar to that Brewers-Twins game, but just I think the line is where it needs to be, and it's not really a ton of value either way. I'll lean towards the Padres because I do think they're in better form offensively, especially against right-handed pitchers, where the Marlins in the last month, well below league average against righties in team OPS and isolated power. I like the fact that the Padres have a low strikeout rate at 19.5% against righties. Sandy Alcantara has been better at Lone Depot Park this season. On the road this year, he's got an ERA of 4.55 and a 4-6 losing record in 87 innings of work. I also think the Padres bullpen's in better form, so a slight lean for me to the Padres on the money line. Next up, the Tampa Bay Rays hosting the Colorado Rockies. Aaron Savale and Austin Gomber are your projected starters. Now, we know Austin Gomber struggled in his last game, but that was at Coors Field, and overall in the second half of the season, he has really turned things around. He's been a sharp option in this Rockies rotation. He's got a much more beneficial matchup here against Tampa Bay on the road, away from Coors, where Tampa Bay in the last month, 27th in isolated power against lefties. They're 23rd in team OPS. They have a steep strikeout rate. I think we see Gomber bounce back here, put together a good outing. The Rockies' bats have not been great on the road this year, but I think they do enough against Savale to keep this game close. So I'm going to take the Rockies plus the 1.5 runs on the road. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Kevin Gausman and Jack Flaherty are your starters. Both starting pitchers struggled in their most recent outings. Kevin Gausman against the Phillies, 7 total runs, 5 of those were earned in that 9-4 Blue Jays loss. Jack Flaherty, not much better, 7 earned runs given up against the Padres in the 10-3 Padres win over Baltimore. I'm going to lean towards the Blue Jays here. I do think Gausman is the better option on the mound to start this game, and the Blue Jays have better numbers across the board slightly against righties in the last month compared to Baltimore. A higher walk rate, lower strikeout rate, better OPS, better isolated power. A lean for me to the Blue Jays on the money line, but not my favorite game on the board. Next up, the Washington Nationals taking on the New York Yankees. Mackenzie Gore and Luis Severino are your starters. It's tempting to take the Nationals at a really good price here with how much Severino has struggled. We know he's got an ERA above 11 in the month of August so far. Just under 11. He had an ERA above 11 in July, and the Yankees are 1-7 in his last 8 starts. But Mackenzie Gore is a lefty, and he has struggled against teams that hit lefties well. The Yankees are one of those teams. In the last month, they're top 10 in baseball in isolated power against lefties, number 2 in the league in team OPS with a low strikeout rate to go with it. So I do think the Yankees back up Severino offensively, but in the end, I think the Nationals could grab the W. I'd just rather take the over, as I expect a high-scoring game. Next up, the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Xavier Curry and Clayton Kershaw are your starters. Give me the Dodgers here on the run line. Kershaw pitching well. He's in good form overall this season. Good numbers, 11-4 with a 2.48 ERA. Better numbers when he's pitching at Dodger Stadium, but still an ERA just above 3 on the road. He's facing a Guardians team that has notably struggled against lefties. They are dead last in baseball in team OPS against lefties with a 499 team OPS in about 350 plate appearances, which is not that small of a sample size. So they have been one of the worst lineups in baseball this year against southpaws, and I think Kershaw pitches well. Curry on the other side, he's got a 3.24 ERA, but a 4.88 expected ERA, 5.2 xFIP. So there's some regression concerns in his game going forward. Tough lineup here in the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers here on the run line. In our next game, we see the New York Mets taking on the Atlanta Braves in the NL East. We're going to see Charlie Morton and Jose Quintana as your starters. Jose Quintana is probably the best option the Mets have right now in their rotation. He's been pretty consistent for him, even though he's got that losing record, a 3.03 ERA. Usually goes out there, gives him 6 innings. He's actually had 5 straight quality starts for the New York Mets. It controls off a little bit and doesn't have the best strikeout numbers, but he keeps the ball on the ground, doesn't usually give up too much sharp contact. That's important against this very powerful Braves lineup. And when you look on the other side, Charlie Morton has struggled against the Mets. We saw this year an ERA just below 5. Even in 2022, he struggled against New York. So I think that the Mets have a good opportunity here to at least keep this game close, but if not, earn another outright upset in this series. Give him the New York Mets plus the 1.5 with a sprinkle on the money line. Next up, we see the Houston Astros hosting the Boston Red Sox. Jose Urquidy and Chris Sale are your starters. I'm leaning towards the Astros in this game. I do think Jose Urquidy is slightly better than his current ERA. He's in decent form his last couple of starts, his last couple of appearances, I should say. 7 innings of work his last 2 outings combined, giving up only 1 earned run with 10 strikeouts. The Red Sox are a tough lineup against righties, but the Astros even tougher against lefties, and they faced a lefty here in Chris Sale. Houston #1 in OPS and ISO in the last month against southpaws, and they have a very low strikeout rate and high walk rate to go with it. Sale has not been great on the road this season. Believe it or not, he's actually been better at Fenway Park, but on the road, a 5.2 ERA. I'm going to take the Houston Astros here on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.